Today is Wednesday, May 9th, 2018. This is a bombshell report that is going to knock your socks off, so please watch this video to the end. I know it's a little bit long. And if you find my research in this video valuable, I would appreciate your support at patreon.com/endtimesnewsreport or paypal.me/endtimesnewsreport. Okay. Right now, Iranian forces in Syria are shelling Israeli bases, Israeli troops in the Golan Heights, which is Syrian territory occupied since 1967 by Israel. But I'm going to have to set aside that report, put it in a different video. What I've done is I've already prepared something else that I want to get out to you first. I always tell you guys that if you want to understand what's really going on, all you have to do is follow the money. And a lot of my research that I do is based on following the money. And so if we want to understand Syria, we have to do that same thing. Follow the money. Who has financial interests in what is happening in Syria? Now, I noticed some reports in Iraqi media mentioning, this is yesterday, as I was scrolling through media reports, reports in Iraq mentioning that Iraqi intelligence managed to lure multiple high-ranking ISIS commanders from Syria across the border into Iraq, and they arrested them. And it got me thinking about how ISIS has been able to have so many high-level commanders here in this one area, in an area where I know there's U.S. presence. How can they have so many people there without being tracked or attacked by U.S. forces or by our proxies that are there? Because they're all over that area. So I had my idea, but what I did to get confirmation is I reached out to one of my sources in Iraq for information. This particular source is a member of the Anbar Provincial Council, and he has access to Iraqi intelligence reports. So I'm going to share with you all what I learned from him. I'm not going to reveal his name, so don't bother asking. I'll just say that communicating with him is not easy. He doesn't speak English. I don't speak Arabic. So thank goodness for Google Translate. All right, here's what he told me. ISIS forces keep traveling from Syria into Iraq along this corridor into, which I'll show you in a minute, into Al-Qaim, which is part of the largest governorate in Iraq. ISIS has a pretty large population just across the border there in Syria. And Iraqi intelligence knows the location of the leadership of ISIS for a lot of their chiefs. And they have conveyed this information repeatedly to the United States. They also have reason to believe that even the ISIS top leader, their caliph, al-Baghdadi, they believe he is in this particular region that I'm going to show you. But despite the many attempts to get the United States to go after ISIS in this area, USA won't touch them. They won't do any airstrikes. They won't do anything. And it's really got a lot of the Iraqi politicians up in arms over it, because they know that the ISIS leadership is in this area, and they know the United States has the ability to take them out, but they're not doing it. And he says it looks to him and to others there in Iraq like the United States is providing a safe haven. Now, you may ask why. Why would the United States do this? Let me start by showing you guys some satellite footage, and I'll give you a real quick summary. Okay, we've got Syria over here. This is Iraq. The yellow line is the border between Iraq and Syria. Up here we've got Deir ez-Zor. We're going to come back to that in a moment. Here is, for the sake of Gary Johnson, there's Aleppo up there. This, of course, is the Euphrates River. We zoom in. Here is Al-Qaim, this province area, but they've also got the town. And then across the border, we've got Hajin. Let me show you real quick. From Hajin to Al-Qaim, it's roughly 40 kilometers, which translates into 26 miles. That's about how far away ISIS leadership is, because ISIS is concentrated in Hajin right now, according to my source, including al-Baghdadi. It's not like a huge metropolis or anything. But this is where leadership is hiding. And what is happening is ISIS, when they want to go into Iraq, is they just do a quick little day trip down here and cross through. The border is porous. Let me go to a different map here and show you a little more detail. All right, the white line is the border between Iraq and Syria. We'll come in, whoops, a little too close. This is the Al-Qaim sub-district. We cross over the border, and right here is Hajin. But what I want to draw your attention to is what is right outside of Hajin. Over here we have the Kishma oil field. All right, wherever you find ISIS, oil is nearby. We've got the Kishma oil field. If we follow this, the Euphrates River, if we go along up through here, all of this is oil fields. Lots of oil in this area, and I think we go up to Deir ez-Zor. This whole region, these are all oil fields along through here. And I'll show you on a different map without all that detail. You can see a little bit better. Deir ez-Zor. Whoops. Oil fields all over the place. And there's Hajin and the oil field down there. Now, what happened is this. Let me go back to this map. Here is the Euphrates River. Back in November, Russia, Iran, and Syria got ISIS dislodged and got them on the run. The United States had to back a different group. They were going to lose control of the oil fields. All of this oil was going to fall into the hands of its rightful owners, the Syrians. So what happened was the United States threw its support behind the Kurds, the SDF. In November, the SDF started taking control of the oil fields from ISIS. But it's not that they had to fight them for it. ISIS stayed in place because they were being coordinated by the CIA. They stayed in place and held the oil fields, held the facilities until the Kurds arrived, and then they would leave without a firefight and turn the oil fields over to them so that the oil remained in the hands of the United States. And I'll show you a couple. This one's from November 10th. Syrian Arab Army versus the Kurdish SDF race along Euphrates River to seize last Deir ez-Zor oil fields. And that's what happened. It was literally a race with U.S. military vehicles, a convoy of U.S. military vehicles. I've put that in a video in the past. I showed it to you. They were on the northern side of the border here with the Kurds, and running along the southern side where the Russians, Iranians, and the Syrians, it was a race to see who could get down to Deir ez-Zor first to take control. And the American forces, the SDF, they got there first. And so ISIS handed it over to them. So that's what happened here. This is from November 11th. In the province of Deir ez-Zor on the eastern bank of the Euphrates, SDF took control of Kishma oil field. I also follow a lot on Syrian and Iraqi sites. I have to go to Google Translate and translate to get all this, but it's helpful. Here's another one. This was on December 6th. This is when the SDF continued to move further down the Euphrates, and they took over Hajin, and that's when they got control of the oil resources there. All right, so why is Donald Trump allowing ISIS to remain here in this area? Well, the answer is because that's what the CIA wants. They want it that way. ISIS has been used by the CIA and by the Mossad to control the oil in this region. And they were replaced, the ISIS forces were replaced with the Kurdish SDF. But it appears that the Kurds, and I've talked about this recently, it looks like the Kurds are being tempted away from supporting the United States because they know that they're going to get stabbed in the back. They're moving away from the United States toward forming an alliance with Bashar al-Assad, which would put the oil back into the hands of Syria. So if that happens, the CIA is going to need ISIS to go back in, do what it did before, which is to start killing the Kurds and creating chaos and try and retake control of the region. They need the leadership intact. So you may say, all right, conspiracy theory sounds absurd. Donald Trump hates ISIS. He would never go along with such a plan. Donald Trump's a hero, so he would not go along with this. Well, I say yes, he would. Genie Oil and other Rothschild-related oil and energy companies, they want this territory. They've already got control of Syria's Golan Heights. Benjamin Netanyahu has already given the contracts over to Genie for the exploration in Syria's Golan Heights. So now the Rothschild Syndicate wants the rest of the oil. They want access to the rest of this for their oil corporations. And Trump is going to help them get it. He owes them. He owes the Rothschilds. And that's why Trump has been saying since the very beginning that he started running for president, that he intends to go into the Middle East and take the oil. Take the oil from Iraq, take the oil from Syria. And if you have been following my reports, Donald Trump is helping with CIA drone strikes down in Somalia and Sudan to take the oil there as well, where the Rothschild corporations are working. So I'm making that claim that Trump is connected to the Rothschilds. I know that I'm already getting thumbs down before anyone even listens to my evidence. So is he connected? Yes, he is, most certainly, and I'm going to prove it to you. Let's start by following the money. Let's look at Trump's early business dealings. If we go back to 1987, Donald Trump got into the casino business. He bought 93% of the shares in a holding company in Atlantic City in New Jersey. It's called Resorts International. I'm just going to call it RI for Resorts International. Basically, what RI does is they go in and they buy up casinos that are in financial trouble. They strip them down and they make them more efficient. And then they turn profits on these casinos without having to put in much of a capital investment. So this holding company was created with the goal of basically snapping up declining casinos at bargain prices and then running them as efficiently, as profitably as possible. They're kind of like a pared down version of the company that Mitt Romney worked for, Bain Capital. You just go in, you buy up troubled companies, fire a bunch of people, sell off troubled assets, try and make money off what's left. And if you can't, you just sell the whole doggone thing. Well, anyway, Trump bought 93% of the shares in Resorts International. And because of that, the company made him their chairman. Let me tell you about RI. They've got a very dirty history. Back in the 1950s, CIA Director Allen Dulles, who the airport is named after there in D.C., Allen Dulles and New York Governor Thomas Dewey helped to establish a front company. It was called the Mary Carter Paint Company. Dulles and Dewey were front men. Everyone knew this. Well, maybe not everyone. A lot of people knew this. They were front men for oil tycoon David Rockefeller. And Rockefeller, if you're into this stuff, you already know this. Rockefeller was an agent of the Rothschild Syndicate, similar to how George Soros today is a front man for the Rothschilds. Well, CIA Director Allen Dulles used $2 million out of CIA funds to buy a controlling interest in this company, in this front. It's supposed to be a paint company. But the company was used by the CIA and the Israeli Mossad to launder money from its operations, including gambling and drug trafficking. But the company grew, and they needed something bigger than a paint company as the cover. So in 1963, this paint company suddenly stopped selling paint and they got into the casino business. They changed their name from the Mary Carter Paint Company to Resorts International. Huge transition. The chairman of the board of RI was a guy named Meyer Lansky. This guy's a well-known figure in the criminal gambling syndicate. Lansky was a Mossad asset. He also worked with the CIA. And all during this time, David Rockefeller continued to help finance the operations of this front company. Rockefeller had huge CIA ties. Also, we had massive financing for RI coming from a guy named Tibor Rosenbaum. He was the Mossad's chief financier for covert arms deals. And there was one more notable investor in RI, none other than Baron Edmund de Rothschild. All right, so we've got Rothschild investments here. And aside from his investments in RI, this guy Rothschild also partnered with Tibor Rosenbaum in several other Mossad ventures. So we've got a massive amount of very wealthy people taking a strange interest in a paint company that turns into a little casino company. Big names, billionaires, showing interest in this little company. With all this financing from some of the New World Order's wealthiest figures, RI continued to expand. They eventually became one of the most profitable gambling enterprises in the entire world. Under the leadership of RI's chairman, James Crosby, another guy who was deeply connected to the CIA. Look any of this up. Under James Crosby's leadership, RI started to develop in Atlantic City. What they wanted to do was turn Atlantic City, New Jersey, into the Las Vegas of the East Coast, so that they could help, they'd have higher revenues, higher profits, but they could also launder a lot more money for these CIA and Mossad black ops. Well, he died, Crosby died in 1987, and that's when this up-and-coming New York real estate tycoon, this guy named Donald Trump, comes along. And he buys Crosby's interest in the RI empire. He buys up 93%. This is not conspiracy theory. Anything I'm saying here that you don't believe, I challenge you, before you say, you're lying, where are your sources? Go look this up. It is not hard to confirm. Okay, it's all over the internet. So here we have RI chairman Donald Trump taking 93% ownership of this massive operation in the late 80s. And I don't have it next to me. This is in The Art of the Deal, in Trump's book, which I've read multiple times. Well, another thing that happened to Trump in the late 80s, around this time, is that the New York real estate market collapsed. Huge losses. And Trump was facing the very real likelihood of losing everything, including the 3 Atlantic City casinos that he owned. He was going to lose everything. He needed financial backing fast to keep this thing from not just RI, but Trump's real estate investments. His empire that he had built was coming down around him. So where did this money come from to back to back Trump? Well, it came from a company called Rothschild Incorporated, Rothschild Inc. It's a multinational investment banking company. It's based in the UK. It was started by Nathan Rothschild, who is the son of the founder of the whole Rothschild dynasty, Meyer Amschel Rothschild. Nathan started this bank at his father's direction. For those that don't know, Meyer Amschel Rothschild had 5 sons, sent them to London, Paris, all over the place, across Europe, to establish banks. They started a banking dynasty, took control of everything. Well, Nathan is the one who was sent to London, and in 1811 he started this bank, Rothschild Incorporated. It's one of the oldest and most continuously operated banks in the world. All right, so the Rothschild Bank over in the UK, they serve the British nobility. That includes the British royal family. Today, the chairman of Rothschild Inc. is Sir Evelyn de Rothschild. He's called Sir Evelyn because he is the personal financial advisor to Queen Elizabeth II. She knighted him in 1989. That's how you get the title Sir. is if you are knighted. Well, it was the Rothschilds themselves who bailed out Donald Trump. They kept him from financial ruin. Again, publicly verifiable information. One place you can look to confirm this is Bloomberg News, March 23rd, 1992. The name of the article is Donald Trump's card. And the subtitle of the Donald Trump card is he just got a better deal than expected. Let me read you an excerpt from this. This is directly from the Bloomberg article. Donald Trump. The name is a punchline now, associated with the worst of 1980s extravagance, egomania, and greed. Once, the world marveled at the scope and mastery of Trump's mega-buck deals. Today, he's widely regarded as a washed-up real estate mogul who has been stripped of his once lustrous possessions. In the first comprehensive analysis of his holdings since his 1990 near collapse, Businessweek estimates that he has a negative net worth of almost $1.4 billion. Trump is also on a very short leash from lenders. They are maintaining strict controls on the cash his operations produce. He faces several fierce debt payments over the next few years, and defaults would permit lenders to seize nearly all of his remaining properties. With Trump in a drawn-out Chapter 11 bankruptcy, the New Jersey Casino Control Commission would likely have yanked his Atlantic City casinos' operating licenses, rendering them near worthless. Trump haters relented after a plea from Wilbur L. Ross, Jr., Senior Managing Director of Rothschild Incorporated. In fact, it was only with the financial assistance of Rothschild Incorporated and assurances from them that Trump was allowed to keep the casinos and rebuild his empire. Okay, now that's directly from Bloomberg News, 1992. All right, Wilbur Ross of Rothschild Inc. Who is Wilbur Ross? First of all, the guy's a billionaire. But more importantly, he was a powerful agent of the Rothschild family. He was helping to handle their operations in New York City. And just like the Bloomberg article said, Ross used vast Rothschild wealth, vast Rothschild influence to invest in Donald Trump. And the Rothschild interest in Trump didn't just end in 1987 when this was going on. Bloomberg News printed another article many years later, March 9th, if you want to look it up, March 9th, 2016. The name of the article is Billionaire Wilbur Ross Would Support Trump If He's Nominated. All right. And not only that, but Ross, not only would he support Trump if nominated, but Ross made massive donations to the Trump campaign as a surrogate for the Rothschilds. And surprise, surprise, when Donald Trump won the presidency, do you know who Donald Trump appointed as our new U.S. Secretary of Commerce? That's right. Rothschild agent Wilbur Ross. You guys don't really believe that the Rothschilds would bail out Donald Trump and not expect something in return, right? Well, now the Rothschild syndicate has one of their top agents in control of U.S. Commerce Department, and Wilbur Ross is out there writing much of the financial policy that Donald Trump is now implementing as president. If this fact, this story of Wilbur Ross, the truth of this, if this doesn't stop some Trump supporters from claiming that Trump is draining the swamp, then nothing will. Let's read another article. LA Times, December 8th, 2016. The article says, when Ross arrived in Atlantic City, New Jersey for negotiations in 1990, he found a throng of journalists and curious onlookers eager to catch a glimpse of Trump, according to the Vulture Investors by Hillary Rosenberg. For the quiet Ross, the scene inspired a revelation. Trump's flashy image had resilience. Ross, an investment banker working for Rothschild Incorporated, helped bondholders negotiate with Trump, whose finances were unraveling. The final deal reduced Trump's ownership stake in the Taj, speaking of the Taj Mahal, not the Taj Mahal, but his version, his little Taj casino. Let's see, it says the final deal reduced Trump's ownership stake in the Taj, but left him in charge, and bondholders were unhappy when Ross presented the plan. Talking about the Taj there. The article continues. Ross grew up in New Jersey and attended a Jesuit prep school in New York before earning degrees from Yale and the Harvard Business School. He spent 2 decades at Rothschild Incorporated, working on bankruptcies. Now with Trump in the White House, foreign trade will, this is what the article says, now with Trump in the White House, foreign trade likely will be the issue that gets the most of Ross's attention. Trump has promised to remake free trade deals. Ross helped formulate Trump's economic policies, which include reduced regulations on energy production. All right, that's the end. That's all I'm going to read from that article. So think about this. Rothschilds now have an agent in charge of forming Donald Trump's economic policies. That's the truth of it. And that includes reducing regulations on oil and energy companies. So follow the money. Do the Rothschilds benefit from Wilbur Ross and Donald Trump's policies of reducing regulations on oil and energy companies? Do they have involvement in these? Of course they do. Just one of the many Rothschild corporations is Genie Energy, which is an Israeli company based in New Jersey. Who is on the company's advisory board? Well, we've got former CIA Director James Woolsey. We have former Vice President and Major Neocon Dick Cheney. There is Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News and the Wall Street Journal. Super rich dude, major big-time Zionist. All these people are Zionists. Murdoch is good buddies with Jared Kushner. But we've also got this other guy on the Genie board, Lord Jacob Rothschild. Now, who is Lord Jacob Rothschild? Okay. His father, Jacob Rothschild's father, used to be chairman of Rothschild Incorporated, this bank. Jacob was going to succeed his father as chairman, take his place, but what happened was Jacob's cousin, Sir Evelyn de Rothschild, he bought up enough shares of the company to get himself anointed as the new chairman when Jacob Rothschild's father died. So they kind of had a fit over that. But both men stayed in the oil business. Jacob Rothschild is primarily responsible for using the government of Qatar to steal oil resources in Africa. He's also using Genie Oil to steal the oil in Syria's Golan Heights. Lord Jacob and his cousin Sir Evelyn, they have both been pushing for the United States and Israel to overthrow the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad so they can go in there and steal the oil. And guess who's helping them do it? So let's go back just another moment to Trump's Commerce Secretary, the guy who's writing the policies that are helping the Rothschild energy corporations. Daily Mail UK, look this one up if you want to, February 18th, 2014. They published an expose entitled Inside Wall Street's Most Secret Society. And the subtitle is The Billionaire Banker Fraternity Where Cross-Dressing New Members Drunkenly Mock the Financial Crisis. So what happened was this reporter had managed to sneak into the induction ceremony of a secret society that's full of Wall Street bankers. The secret society is called Kappa Beta Phi. And it had remained secret since 1929, more than 8 decades. It was secret up until a reporter named Kevin Roose pretended to be a waiter. He snuck in, became the first outsider to witness a Kappa Beta Phi event. Let me read a few excerpts from this article. Quote, a journalist who gate-crashed a secret fraternity of billionaire bankers has laid bare the booze-fueled cross-dressing antics of its members as they openly mocked the 99%, which is us, and made light of the enormous government bailouts of 2009. Sneaking into the swanky St. Regis Hotel ballroom in January 2012, where he was assumed to be a waiter, Kevin Roose became the first outsider to witness the Monty Python-esque induction ceremony for the group. New members, known as neophytes, traipsed around other masters of the universe dressed in leotards and gold sequined skirts and wigs to then perform vaudeville-style acts that included homophobic and sexist jokes and even a parody of ABBA's Dancing Queen called Bailout King. All right. Now, you guys know who some of these members of this group are. Billionaire New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, several members of the Rockefeller family, and one other guy, a little Rothschild agent named Wilbur Ross, our Secretary of Commerce. But hey, Donald Trump wouldn't be associating with a drag queen, would he? It's not like Donald Trump would make a drag queen his new personal attorney or anything like that, right?
You're really beautiful. And a woman that looks like that has to have her own special scent.
Oh, thank you. Maybe you could tell me what you think of this scent. This may be the best of all. Oh, you dirty boy, you. Oh.
I've previously reported to you all about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that George Soros gave. Not loaned, but gave. He gifted to Donald Trump to help stave off a different bankruptcy that Donald Trump was facing. I've played video footage for you of Donald Trump himself, in his own words, telling a crowd of Tea Partiers to back off their criticism of George Soros and leave him alone. So it's clear to people like me, who do actual, verifiable, fact-based research into financial records and who sift through tons of documents and articles, we know that Donald Trump is not some brilliant business genius who is playing 4D chess, trying to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump is a narcissistic con man with deep ties to both organized crime in New Jersey and to CIA and Mossad front companies. He's a failed investor who only survived by selling his soul to the Rothschild family. The Rothschilds clearly own Donald Trump. And if you follow the money, almost everything that Donald Trump is doing with U.S. foreign policy benefits the Rothschilds. Almost all of his economic policies have been written by agents of the Rothschild syndicate. Guys, Donald Trump is a tool of the Rothschilds. Trump even tried to marry into the Rothschild family. Did you know that before marrying Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump was dating Nat Rothschild? Who is Nat Rothschild, you may ask? His full name is Nathaniel. Nathan Rothschild is the son of Lord Jacob Rothschild. How about that? So yeah, you go ahead and tell me there's no connection between the Trumps and the Rothschilds. Even after Nat moved on to other women, he continued to flirt with Ivanka. You can go to his Twitter account right now. You can see a message where he says he would rather see Ivanka as president than Donald or Hillary, saying she should run in 2020. Well, if the example of the Bush family has taught us anything, we may very well see Ivanka end up in the White House with maybe Chelsea Clinton as her vice president or something. And everyone knows, right, Ivanka is clearly being groomed for a future presidential run. Of course, we know that Ivanka didn't end up marrying Nat Rothschild. The Trump family was just way too low on the wealth scale to consider letting a Trump marry into the Rothschild family. But old Donald gave it his best effort. In the end, he encouraged Ivanka to instead to marry into a different powerful family, the New Jersey real estate family, the Kushners. Donald had long admired the Kushners. Very powerful real estate family there in New Jersey. And with Trump's real estate investments in New Jersey, they had crossed paths quite a bit. Remember, the Kushners are close personal friends with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And I've told you 1,000 times Netanyahu slept in Jared Kushner's room during one of his visits, and that's confirmed in multiple Israeli media sources. So is it any surprise that Donald Trump is also great buddies himself with Netanyahu? Is it any wonder that Donald Trump made the director of the CIA his new Secretary of State, or that his new National Security Advisor is John Bolton, who is clearly a puppet of the Israeli Mossad? Everyone knows this, that he's a shill for Israel. So as we look at what Donald Trump is doing from the White House, as he uses the U.S. military to attack Syria, which is exactly what the Rothschilds publicly advocated for, as we watch Trump tear up the Iran deal and join with Israel to push for war with Iran so they can go in there and take over the oil fields, as we watch Trump conveniently avoid striking ISIS leadership in northeastern Syria, as my Iraqi contact has pointed out, I want y'all to remember that in this video, I didn't just give you my personal opinion. I gave you information that you can verify for yourself. So you may hate me for saying what I've said in this video about Donald Trump. You can hate me all you want, but you can't refute what I said. Donald Trump is not fighting against the Rothschild New World Order Syndicate. He's one of their puppets, bought and paid for. And you can take that to the bank. Guys, please share this video. For Blackstone Intelligence, I'm Jake Morphonios.